All right. Welcome back. Episode 3 of the New York Football Show with me, Frankie and Justin. You guys ready to talk some football?
What's up? Oh, yeah, you know it.
All right, let's get right to it.
This.
So, you guys know that I grew up a Dolphins fan and that I was kind of excited that they might be decent this year, and then headed into this Bills matchup on Thursday. I was pretty excited. And then Tua got another concussion. So there's been a lot of talk the last few days about whether or not he should retire. Do you guys think that that's a possibility? Do you think he should retire? What are the Dolphins doing in terms of backups? I saw something about Tyler Huntley. So let's start with you, Frankie. How you feeling about Tua's prospects here in the National Football League?
I mean, I don't feel good. I'm not a doctor by any means, but I know that when you have at least 3 concussions, and we'll talk about a fourth, when you have at least 3 concussions in 2 years, that is not good for your long-term health. I do feel kind of bad for Tua, not just the sense with the concussions, but imagine you have another terrible head injury on national TV, and the next day, all everyone in the media is talking about is that you should retire, is that you got to step away. And while I understand it may come from a good place, I also just feel like we're just adding more pressure on this guy. So it's just really unfortunate. For me, I think he's got to do what's best for him. He's got to listen to his doctors. He's got to listen to his family, and they got to tell him what's best for him. I hope he retires. Just personally, I think that'd be what I want for him. But I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's a football player, and his mentality is I'm going to try. And until they drag me out of here, until I'm forced to, I can't. I'm not going to stop. So I think he'll play.
Yeah.
I hope he decides to leave, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. Justin, what are your thoughts? Think Tua's done?
I know he's not done because he's already saying he doesn't want to be done, but it's, concussions are one thing, but the type of concussions he gets, the hits that he's taken that cause the concussions, they aren't like, remember when Antonio Brown got just destroyed by Vontaze Burfict and completely altered the course of his career? To me, that's like, okay, that's a hit you get, that's a concussion. But Tua's hits aren't that huge, so he's got a problem. He's got a chronic problem with getting concussions, and that doesn't mix well with football. And if I were him, I'd just take the money and say, all right, I'm done. Right? Like Andrew Luck did it after a series of injuries.
Yeah.
Tua's had a pretty decent start to a career. He was just getting started, but it's just you got to think about your health. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's going to be stubborn, just like most athletes are. They don't want to hang it up before they think they're ready. So, I mean, just
Is he too small?
I don't think it's a small thing. I think it's just he's got some sort of problem where he's prone to concussions, right? Like I don't know if his brain is too big or what.
Or
I don't know,
too
but
small? I think a concussion is when your brain rattles around inside your head. So maybe he's got that Homer Simpson syndrome where he's got that thick layer of goo. Vikings now 2-0. Sam Darnold continues to impress. Frankie, you want to weigh in on the Vikings? He doesn't. He's frozen. Let's start with Justin.
All right, so Sam Darnold, that's an interesting case. He's bounced around the league. He was with the Jets. He was with the Panthers. Most recently, he was with the 49ers as a backup, right? And, everybody thinks that, Sam Darnold's probably destined to be a backup. And he was going to be a backup in Minnesota to J.J. McCarthy. It was supposed to be a rebuilding year for the Vikings. But Darnold comes in and just lights it up. I mean, I don't know if something just clicked or if he got out of a bad situation into a really good one, having Justin Jefferson to throw to, having a solid defense in Minnesota. But he's doing really well, and it's good to see because he came out of Southern Cal highly touted, and he's been tearing it up so far.
Frankie, Saints blew out the Cowboys. Thoughts on that one?
This was by far to me the most impressive result of the week and maybe of the entire season so far. I know we're only 2 weeks in, but to me this was an unbelievable performance by the Saints. And this is not a mediocre team. This is the Cowboys who, love them or hate them. We all expect this team to be pretty good. They have the talent. And for Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara and this team to just run over Dallas in Dallas was incredible. And all of us watching football on Sunday, all of us looked around and had the same thought, which is, are the Saints actually good? Because this was supposed to be one of the 10 worst teams in the league. Nobody expected what we saw here on Sunday. So I was thoroughly impressed. Kamara with 4 touchdowns. Carr looks like vintage Carr. I mean, that was like 2016 Derek Carr. He looks incredible right now, the way he's throwing the football. So whether or not this is going to continue, I don't know. But they have a great matchup coming up because they have the Eagles at home, and the Eagles might be free falling a little bit here with the collapse last night against the Falcons on Monday night. So this is the perfect time to take on Atlanta. Maybe, just maybe, this is the perfect chance for the Saints to start off the season 3-0, which would be truly stunning. No one would have predicted that at the beginning of the year.
I always liked Carr when he was with the Raiders. Any thoughts on that game, Justin?
To me, it looks like the Cowboys are already in playoff form. I mean, they are. But all kidding aside, I mean, the first game against the Browns, you thought the Cowboys defense was for real. And they brought in Mike Zimmer to try to take over for Dan Quinn, who went on to be a head coach. I forget where he went, but Cowboys. I mean, that's supposed to be their strength, defense, and it was not. Kamara just ate him alive. I thought Kamara was kind of washed at this point, but he's looking really good. And the offense is supposed to be solid, but the Saints defense just shut it down. Carl Granderson was a nightmare inside, taking down Prescott for a couple of sacks. Saints, I mean, we'll see what happens this week with the Eagles, but they look for real.
What are your thoughts on the Ravens, Justin? They are 0-2. Are they in trouble?
I mean, there's all these stats about 0-2 and how that's really bad for teams to start 0-2 and they never make the playoffs. But this is the Ravens. They are a solid team. Now, there are some questions about the offensive line. They did rebuild it a little bit this year. Got rid of some veterans, brought in some young guys. I guess they figured having Lamar Jackson back there and Derrick Henry was good enough, but if they're always in your backfield, no one's really going to succeed there. So they got to fix that with the offensive line. And then defensively, I mean, they let the Raiders just march down the field for the winning score. So they really need to fix some problems there. I wouldn't sound the alarm yet on the Ravens, but they do need to kind of get it together to prove that they're still one of the best teams in the AFC.
I will say it's not real life, but I've been using the Ravens in my Madden franchise, and the defense has been a real problem. So I don't know, maybe life imitating art there.
That's because you all Madden.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Frankie, Chiefs Bengals game. Let's talk about the pass interference call and the Bengals dropping to 0-2. What are your thoughts on that game?
Most exciting game of the weekend. This was the one I was probably looking forward to the most, and it lived up to the hype. You had, these two. Chiefs Bengals is a great rivalry. We've seen that over the last years. It's right up there with Chiefs and Bills, and it lived up to it. The interception by the Bengals player, I'm forgetting, that was one of the most amazing interceptions I've ever seen. The one-handed as he's turning around was great, but the Chiefs are going to do what the Chiefs do, and you can't give them an opportunity. You cannot, much like Tom Brady in his peak, you cannot give Mahomes and Kansas City any opportunity to march down the field with 2 minutes to go to win a game. You just can't. We've seen it over and over, and it happened in this game here. I mean, the Bengals allowed it with the Burrow fumbling the ball that led the Chiefs to return the touchdown, and then the Chiefs just slowly went down the field. I mean, that 4th and 16, you knew that was going to be a pass interference. You've seen this team too many times now. Somewhere there's going to be a pass interference call. It was the right call. I will say that. We talk about whether or not this is pass interference. That was 100% pass interference. You can argue, should it be called like that more consistently throughout the game, but whatever. It was the right call there. Bucker made the kick. I'm not worried about the Bengals yet. Much like the Ravens, I think they're a very talented team. They're just struggling right now at 0-2. They just had the Patriots lost. That's really the one that you can – against the Chiefs in Kansas City, but losing to New England, a team that all of us thought was a rebuilding team this year, although New England's playing a lot better than a lot of us gave them credit for, that's one that's tough to live with. So I think the Bengals will be fine. The Chiefs, though, they're not playing amazing right now. Mahomes had a couple bad interceptions. Kelsey's kind of been non-existent on offense. There's been some struggles here by the Chiefs, but eventually they get the win. And even if you win ugly, they're wins. I mean, there's teams right now like the Ravens or the Bengals that would love to have an ugly win, but instead they have 2 losses. So you take with what you can get. But yeah, I think the Chiefs will be fine, and I expect them as the year goes on for them to get better on offense. But 2-0 is 2-0, and even though it hasn't been pretty, they've gotten it done.
So I want to wrap up the NFL stuff here because we got to move on to the Jets. But I'll give the final thought to you here on Caleb Williams. Justin obviously struggled again on Sunday night. Thoughts on Caleb Williams so far?
I think it's still too early to say if he's bad or not. It is the Texans, and they are a good defense. So, I mean, we don't mention the Texans a lot here, but I am pretty high on the Texans in general. Potent offense, solid defense. So, look out for them to make some noise in the AFC. But Caleb Williams, I mean, is it him or is it the Bears again? I don't remember. I don't remember a time when the Bears had a quarterback that turned out to be any good in Chicago, right? So we'll see if he can put it together. But right now, he's looking pretty rough.
All right, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers.
I have a great stat here. Sorry to interrupt you, Derek. Sorry to interrupt you, but I have a great stat that I saw a couple days ago that J.J. McCarthy, who tore his ACL, is missing the whole season for the Vikings. He was supposed to start for them as a rookie, and he right now is tied with all other rookies for passing touchdowns. So it's been a rough start for this draft class that you have all of these guys come in, and all of them have not looked that good. This is no one's firing out of the gate here like Cam Newton. It's been a rough one.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the Jets. So they picked up the dub, first win for Aaron Rodgers, but the offense still pretty bad. 22nd in passing yards, 26th in rushing yards, 28th in total yards. 2 TDs for Braylon Allen. Will McDonald had 3 sacks. Justin, why don't you take it away since you did the 2-minute drill on the Jets and give your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so did the 2-minute drill, predicted it to be 23-10. Stated that Will Levis was going to probably force some throws he shouldn't, which he did. We'll talk about that in a second. Overall, the Jets held on at the end. They had to stop a last-minute drive within the red zone to pull it out, but they did win, and they won 24-17. So I was pretty close on a prediction. But yeah, you're right. That Jets offense still looks pretty atrocious. Rodgers has not put it together. I thought he'd have a much better game than he did. And now Will Levis, again, I talked about turnovers with Will Levis, and I know he's a Titans player, but I don't know if you saw the turnover he had with the interception where he tried this, he tried to be Pat Mahomes, but he is not Pat Mahomes, right? He tried this weird, little flip pass as he's being sacked, ends up getting picked off. They were driving, getting ready to score. He also lost a fumble 6 yards from the end zone. He is the reason why the Titans could not pull this out. But the coach completely just blew up on him after one of the turnovers because at some point the coach is thinking about his job. He's like, look,
right.
I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and Will Levis is out here blowing it up for me. So Jets, they pulled it out. They have another short week. They play Thursday night against the Patriots, who are way better than I thought they were going to be. So this might be a tough one for the Jets to pull out. Solid defense, real conservative offense, a lot of tight end throws. Jacoby Brissett's leading them there. So we'll see what goes on there. And then the Jets have some injury concerns. They just lost Jermaine Johnson, their defensive end, out for the year with an Achilles. And then C.J. Mosley has a toe problem, which makes him questionable. I think he'll play through that. But toe injuries, while they don't sound terrible, are bad. I mean, that's how you plant. That's how you move. That's how you run. So we'll see what happens there if he plays the whole game or if at all. But it'll be interesting to see what happens against the Patriots. We'll do another 2-minute drill to talk about that game in more detail.
So Frankie, I actually didn't get to catch the Jets game. How did Rodgers look mobility wise? And did you have any other thoughts on their week 2 matchup?
I mean, he looked okay, but as we mentioned, he's 39, 40 years old, recovering from a torn Achilles. So it's going to be slow, but yeah, I thought he looked fine. He made some really good throws, especially the last touchdown of the game that gave him the lead. That was a really good drive from Rodgers there. But yeah, you take what you can get here with the Jets. Thank God, at least they got a win because
Kirk Cousins is coming off a torn Achilles, and he was able to lead a game-winning drive. I mean, it can be done.
Yes. That's fair. Kirk Cousins is a little younger, though, but yes, I understand that.
Barely.
But,
Barely.
For the Jets fans, it's been so long since you've had a good quarterback. You'll take it right now. You'll take the fact that Rodgers may not look 100%, but it's fine because at least you got to win and you got to feel good about that. And they have a chance to go 2-1 here, even though, as we mentioned, the Patriots are going to be a tough matchup. I still think they're going to win the game, so I think they are a much more talented roster than New England is. So that should be a fun Thursday night game. Also, credit to Will McDonald for his 3 sacks in the game. That was very impressive.
Do you want to talk about Callahan's quote? Because he said, I don't regret my feelings about it in the moment, how I felt in the moment. I'm generally pretty composed. This one just set me off, and I'm human. Just like everybody else, I have blackout moments where I'll lose my mind. Any thoughts on that?
I will say this. As you and I, Derek, are both Yankee fans, it was so refreshing to hear a coach or a manager rip his own player. We don't hear it holding his player accountable. It is such a rarity from watching the Yankees. So I didn't mind it. And he said what all of us was thinking. It was like, Will, what are you doing there, man? Don't make that kind of mistake. Like, I know year 2 or year 3, but you got to be better than that. You have to know already you can't do any stupid play like that. Will Levis, every game, has 1 or 2 just idiotic moments that you're just like, how is this guy still in the league? But I know he's more talented than that, but he just had the capacity to make these dumb mistakes.
Yeah, dumb mistakes will kill you. Let's talk a little bit about the Giants.
Speaking of dumb mistakes.
Yeah, they are now 0-2. They lost 21-18 to the Commanders and did not have a backup kicker, which ended up, hurting them. Jones, not as bad as week 1. Justin, why don't you lead off with the Giants?
So, Dable's being kind of crucified for not having a backup kicker. And you have to kind of think about that by listening to what you're saying. Why didn't you have a backup kicker? You shouldn't really have a backup kicker. That's kind of a wasted roster spot. However, Graham Gano was kind of coming off an injury already. So the question really should be, should you have gone with Graham Gano at this point? Should you have gone maybe with another kicker? Don't even put him in the situation to get hurt, because now you've lost him for however long with the hamstring injury. That'll come back to bite them, and instead of just like taking an extra game or 2 to let him get better. But yeah, I can't really fault him for not having a backup kicker, but I can fault him for playing Gano at all. And Daniel Jones, I mean, he was not terrible. He wasn't great, but he's proven that he can do stuff. I mean, he's got the talent to do things. A lot of it has been decision making. Courage under fire type of stuff where he's got to run for his life. But today, he showed that he possibly could keep the starting job. They didn't do enough to win, but again, a lot of that had to do with not having a kicker.
178 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 100 QB rating for Daniel Jones in this game.
That is an Aaron Rodgers-like line.
Yeah. Frankie, any thoughts on Jones and the Giants as they fall at 0-2?
Yeah, it wasn't a terrible Jones performance, but he always seems to play the Commanders well. It's kind of like how Ken O'Brien always used to kill the Dolphins. It's one of those things where I don't know why it is that against the Commanders he's always pretty good. But yeah, he wasn't terrible. I felt so bad for Malik Neighbors because he actually had a pretty good day with his first receiving touchdown, and yet that drop at the end of the game, it wasn't the most egregious drop, as we saw Saquon last night have an even more ill-timed drop that cost his team. But it was, I felt so bad for him because Daniel Jones is not going to throw you a lot of good balls, so you got to take advantage of the ones that he throws that are pretty decent. And yeah, to lose a game like that without having a backup kicker, I don't know what Dable and Joe Sheehan are doing. I don't understand why. I don't know whose decision that was to not, when Gano has an injury, I don't know whose decision that is to say, yeah, we don't really need another kicker. Like, it's fine. He'll be out there. And you just have to rely on all these 2-point conversions. I don't understand what the rest. It just seems like Dable has lost his way here. All the genius from 2022 that he had is just slowly fading away. And then he has the nerve to get snippy at a reporter because he's questioning his job security. I mean, I'm really, it's such a shame what's happening to Dable here because I really liked him. All Giants fans did in his first year. He looked like he had control of the team. He looked like a fun guy to be around. And now it's just, as the losses just pile up, it's getting more and more frustrating. And I don't see, we're going to mention this probably every week, I don't see how he's not one of the first few coaches fired if this team continues to play like they have. But it's been a steep fall and decline for the Giants. And I mean, this is about as embarrassing as it gets to score 3 touchdowns, to not give up a touchdown and still lose. That's just inexplicable. And I'm not sure it's ever happened in the history of the NFL. So just a really difficult loss to the Giants in what is going to be probably almost certainly a difficult season.
So they've got to take on the Cleveland Browns this weekend. Browns are 1-1. Can the Giants get their first dub? What do you think, Justin?
I mean, the Browns look pretty bad too, so it's possible. I will say that the kicker for the Commanders hit 7 field goals, and he was previously unsigned. So just imagine the Giants had signed Austin Siebert. What happens then? Doesn't kick 7 field goals.
There's probably lots of kickers out there that are just unsigned. I mean, I know this sounds like dumb for like, a normal person, but like how hard could it be to kick a field goal? Like if you're a professional kicker, even if you've been sitting out for a while, you should be able to hit field goals like up to a certain range at least, and definitely extra points. I mean, so, I think it's one of those things where like anybody will do. Let's see if we can get Tony Danza in here with his boot. Let's talk a little bit about the Bills. So Bills 31-10 victory. They are now 2-0. They obviously destroyed the Dolphins. They destroyed Tua's brain. James Cook with 3 touchdowns. Frankie, why don't we start off with your thoughts on the Bills this week?
Yeah, I was mentioning this to you guys yesterday. I don't know how many great teams there are in the NFL after the first 2 weeks, because I thought the Niners were really good, and then they lost to the Vikings, and I thought Dallas was really good, and I thought Philly was really good. But there's 2 teams that I know for sure are great. The Chiefs you mentioned earlier, and the Bills. Those are the first 2 teams throughout the first 2 weeks. I'm like, yeah, those teams are going to be good, and if not, like they'll be fine. They'll figure out whatever problems they have. The Bills just completely ran over Miami. They made Tua look bad even before the concussion. They had, I believe, 3 turnovers in that game, and they had 3 turnovers, and they stopped the Dolphins on 4th down, and all of those led to points. I think that accounted for like 28 of their 31 points. So they really took advantage of Miami's mistakes. As we mentioned, James Cook had a fantastic day, 3 touchdowns there. The Bills just looked like the best team in the AFC East, and I would like to see the Jets do that, but it's going to be hard to top the Bills and all the talent that they have right now on their roster. And just another solid outing out of Josh Allen. Dominant performance from their defense that was just making Tua look so bad for most of that game. Tua's making so many mistakes with the 2 interceptions that he threw were he threw 3. The first one wasn't his fault. That was one of the receiver's end. And then the 2 interceptions were just bad throws on his end. But the Bills were able to get there. They had 1 pick 6. They were just dominant in this game. And it was just a real show that if you want to take over the AFC East, if you want to reclaim that crown, it's going to be difficult going up against this Bills team with the talent that they have, and they're hungry and they're motivated and they want to finally get over the hump of winning a Super Bowl. It's going to take a lot of work to take the Bills off the top of the AFC East. We'll see if the Jets can do it, but it doesn't seem likely the way the Bills are playing.
Justin, I want to kind of veer a little bit off topic. Are the Dolphins now, do you think they're done? I mean, did that hose their season now with Tua out?
I mean, I don't see Tua coming back anytime soon if he does come back this year. Skylar Thompson did not impress me when he came in. So they did sign Tyler Huntley, who it's funny. You read the headlines of that and it's like, Dolphins signed Pro Bowl quarterback. And it's like Pro Bowl doesn't really mean anything anymore. Right.
Yeah.
Like Tyler Huntley was, in the Baltimore taking over for Lamar Jackson, did pretty well. He's an okay quarterback. He's a good stopgap. He might do enough for the team, but I don't think they're built for a quarterback that can't make accurate throws. Because again, they're a speed team. They got the speedy backs, they got the speedy receivers. They don't really have a grinded out type of team. Like Jeff Wilson's the closest they have to that. So having somebody who can sling it and be accurate with it is important. And Tua was doing that. And like Frankie said, that first interception was not his fault. He had a new receiver in the game. The guy dropped it, bounced off the shoulder pads right into a Bills player's hand. And the second one, I'd argue, really wasn't his fault either. It looks like his receiver didn't run the right route, and they weren't on the same page. So, having an accurate quarterback that makes good decisions is going to be crucial. And I don't know if Skylar Thompson or Tyler Huntley are those quarterbacks, but we'll see what happens. And as we've mentioned before, Tannehill's available.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say that Tannehill should come back to the Dolphins. I've seen a few Dolphins fans that are like, no, we're good, bro. But I like Tannehill. I thought he just didn't develop. He didn't develop super fast. Like they drafted him in the first round, and there was all this best QB since Marino, and he was. I feel like the pressure was too much for him. Like he was anointed as the next guy, and he just didn't develop super fast. But all right, let's go over our players of the week here. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Frankie. Who is your player of the week for? And I want to say week 2, but I had the alert this morning and it was like week 3 wrap up. And I was like, did I miss a week? Because nobody's played 3 games yet. So I don't get it. So I'm not going to be able to put week 2 wrap up on the thumbnail like I wanted to, because it's technically not week 2. So we'll just go with your player of the week here. What's that?
I think it is week 2. I think it's fake news. I think it is week 2.
Yeah, maybe it's NFL screwed up. Yeah, maybe a typo from an intern. All right, Frankie, let's go over your player of the week.
I'm going to go with the most impressive player on the most impressive team of the week, Alvin Kamara, 115 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and then he had the long receiving touchdown there. 4 TDs in total. Saints look like a dynamic offense right now. It looked like, I was mentioning it yesterday, it looked like vintage 2018 right now on offense. Whether it will last, we will see, but I got to give it to Kamara. He was a fantastic player. It was great to see Kamara look as good, because we know his talent, we know his capability. Dallas on Sunday.
4 touchdowns in 1 game. Sounds like Al Bundy. All right, Justin, who's your guy here?
So Frankie had the first pick in the fantasy draft for the player of the week. So obviously he got Kamara. I picked Marvin Harrison for mine. The rookie didn't do anything last week. Didn't really get the ball at all. This week, 4 receptions for 130 yards. That's a pretty good receiving average there. Also 2 touchdowns. And the Cardinals are, again, one of those teams that look a lot better than we all thought they were going to be. We'll see how long that lasts. But they completely dismantled the Rams, who also lost Cooper Kupp. So now they're down 2 receivers. It's looking a lot like previous seasons where the injuries have just derailed them. But yeah, the Cardinals and Marvin Harrison look great.
All right. My player of the week, James Cook, 11 carries for 78 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown. Obviously, he was the big guy in the dismantling of the Miami Dolphins on Thursday night. And he's got the confident smile in his photo there to go along with the great numbers. So what do you guys?
Hey, girl.
Yeah. Hey, I got 3 touchdowns. So what matchups are you guys looking forward to this week around the NFL? Let's start with you, Frank.
I'm trying to look here at definitely not Giants Browns. I'm not looking forward to any Giants game for the remainder of the year. That could be just a week thing. Like I'm not looking forward to the Giants game. You look at here, Dolphins Seahawks. That could be interesting to see how Miami looks with Tua, no longer there. Do they look better? Ravens Cowboys, very interesting matchup here. 2 teams. The Ravens could very potentially be 0-3. That could be crazy to think about. Dallas on the verge of being 1-2. 2 teams that desperately need that game. Lions Cardinals. You want to see if Arizona, who was also a hot team last week, if they can take on how they fare against a really good Detroit team, even though they had a bad loss in week 2. And yeah, Eagles Saints, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
2 teams that are in opposite directions right now. The Saints going way up. The Eagles, if you include the end of last year, are going way down. This is a big matchup for both of those teams there. So
how has Saquon looked, Justin, since changing his uniform colors?
So he's looked awesome, and he looked like he needed a good offensive line, and that's what he got in Philadelphia, right? I would disagree that the Eagles are on the downswing. I mean, losing at the last second there to the Falcons, not great. I think losing A.J. Brown for a few games to a hamstring injury is really going to hamper that offense. We saw Jalen Hurts having to run the ball a lot more. Saquon with the big drop, they were a catch away from putting that game away. I don't think that I'm not down on the Eagles as much as Frankie might be, but that is going to be a good matchup this week. And then the Ravens Cowboys game, I think, is the marquee matchup because that's 2 teams that, like Frankie said, really need to win. So they're going to be really coming out of the gates hungry. We'll see how that goes. The Ravens, again, like Frankie said, might be 0-3. I'd be a little more worried for them there, but they are in a division that isn't great. So we'll see if they can pull out the division title there. But overall, it's going to be an interesting matchup for the Cowboys and Ravens game.
All right, so we will catch you guys back. We're going to have some 2-minute drills this week to preview the Jets game, to preview the Giants game, and then we'll be back next Tuesday with a wrap-up of Week 3 or Week 4, whatever they want to call it on NFL.com. I'm going to go ahead and say Week 3 coming up because nobody's played 3 games yet. So appreciate it, guys. We will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Reminder to like and subscribe. It helps grow the channel. And we're out.